Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Keep the Line Moving, the podcast designed to talk about leadership, life, and inspiration. I'm your host, Chris Gargano, and for episode 78, our topic is energy and passion. Energy and passion in leadership. And when it shines through, you can do amazing things. Perfect example is with our guest and her story, Annie Valeant. You have to hear this story. Annie was recommended to come on the podcast, and here's why. She's the Director of Operations Strategy and Partnerships for Scripps College of Communication at Ohio University. And she's the Executive Director of the Southern Ohio Copperheads, a community-owned, student-operated baseball team that plays in the Great Lakes Summer Collegiate League. Students are the workers in the front office, concession stands, selling beers, etc. You have to hear how they learn the business of baseball. It's in Annie's class at Ohio University. She will explain all the details, as well as her background, where she has done consulting work for the 2016 Rio Olympics, New Orleans Super Bowl committee, and other major sporting events. It all comes together in this conversation with Annie Valeant on Keep the Line Moving. All right, Annie, it's great to see you. And here's my first question to you, Annie. When you introduce yourself to someone that has never met you, what do you say?
Hello.
Oh my goodness, I love that.
Yeah, so my name is Annie Valeant, and I currently serve as the Director of Operations Strategy and Partnerships in Scripps College of Communication at Ohio University, while also serving as the Executive Director of the Southern Ohio Copperheads, which is a 501c3 nonprofit summer collegiate baseball team that just so happens to be community-owned and student-operated.
Oh my gosh, I just love that. I just love that. And that's why you're here. You have such an interesting story and interesting passions. And as you know, Annie, when we met, which is this podcast is about leadership, life, and inspiration. And you're one of those guests that will touch on all of them. So thank you. Okay, so look at this. The Southern Ohio Copperheads. Tell us about this team. And I could see from your face, this is a passion of yours.
It is a passion. It's not about the money. It is not about the money. That's for darn sure. It's a passion. So it's a 501c3, started 22 years ago by Dr. Andy Kreutzer and a number of other people at the university, is a means to provide affordable summer entertainment here in Athens, Ohio. So we are in a college town. There isn't a lot to do when it comes to the outdoors in terms of family affordability, safety, sport, and entertainment wise, right? And so they wanted to start, truthfully, a minor league baseball team, but the economics showed that it couldn't support it. So I decided to join the Great Lakes Summer Collegiate League, and where we've been a part of since 2002. And we pride ourselves. Our tickets are $5, same as they were in 2002. Parking is free. We partner up with a local business that helps him keep his people employed during the summer. It's called Larry's Doghouse. It's a family establishment here in Athens, and they run our concessions. The students sell the beer. We partner with a local brewery here in town, where we came up with a beer idea 3 years ago in the class, the Business of Baseball class. It's named after our mascot. It's called Homer's Hazy IPA. If anybody visits Athens, you can find it at 6 different locations. You know you've made it in town when you're able to influence the bartenders what they should have on tap. So that's been fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the Copperheads, meanwhile, so we say we're community-owned, student-operated. Nobody owns the Copperheads, myself included. We play this summer. We'll host 18 home games in the regular season and go on the road. We've got teams in Ohio and Michigan. Previously, we had teams in Canada and Indiana as well. But it's awesome, and it brings a community together, and while also serving as a learning lab for students who want to work in sport and entertainment. So it's so flippin' fun. It's a lot of work, but it's fun because year after year, the job placement and the careers that students have gone on to have is unbelievable. Like, we've got a number of people who got their start with the Copperheads who are now in C-level exec positions in and out of sport and entertainment. So it's
What a
pretty
story. Annie,
Yeah.
now look at this. So, right, this isn't technically minor league baseball. It's summer league collegiate baseball. So
Sure.
there's a difference, right? But it's in the same ballpark, excuse the pun.
Yeah.
And you could look like your business of baseball class is a feeder into helping. So look at, you got baseball players trying to make it to the major leagues. That's on this side. That's on the field.
Yeah.
Simultaneously, you have students of yours that are running concessions, selling beer, doing promotions, shooting T-shirts in the crowd.
Mhm.
And business, right, within the front office. That is Really, really interesting. I mean, are you one of a kind, or forgive me here for not knowing
Mhm.
this, but are there other pockets of people replicating this throughout the country?
Yeah, so we are a unicorn in the sense of there's I think two schools at one point who owned a baseball team like this that were funded by the university, but we're not 100% affiliated with the university, right? And so the Copperheads is its own 501c3. Now we can make up a term and say it's a communiversity, meaning that yes, there's some classwork where you might be able to recruit students who end up working with the organization, but it really is a 501c3 that needs to stand on its own. So something that I really stress about with the students that I work with is we can come up with ideas all day long, but at the end of the day, we're running a business. And so here's the amount of money that we have to generate to keep it going. And here are the expenses that we have to keep under control. And so it's not just, hey, put this presentation together and yes, that was a class project. No, we're running a business. And so each cohort of Copperhead students, there's usually 30 to 40 who work with the organization every year. Your job is to leave the organization better than the way you found it and to add positivity to the community. And so last year they hosted over 30 community events. We were also named as the local chamber's community support award winner for a local business. And so we bought tickets for each of the students to go to the dinner. And by golly, there was like 20 of them who accepted the award. It was pretty cool. So, yeah.
Love it. So this is what you and I talked about previously. What about your background has prepared you to be the executive director for the Copperheads? What do you think it is about your makeup as a leader, educator, mentor has you perfectly fit for this, do you think?
Well, I think you're very kind to me. I don't know that anyone's perfectly fit, but I think it works. It has worked, right? It seems to work. I think the energy comes behind it, the passion. I believe in what the organization is doing, right? There's been a couple of people along the way who say, why don't you just double your ticket prices? Like, we've had inflation, we've had this, you've had that. It's like, no, we're going to keep them at $5 as long as we have to. And we'll get a local sponsor to let kids in for free too. So kids get in for free. Joe Burrow is our hometown hero. And so if they wear Joe Burrow gear, Copperheads gear, their Little League swag, they can get into a game for free. So every family can come, right? They just need transportation to get there. So I'd say my energy, willingness to work with students, put in the time, and really think about, okay, this isn't a for-profit organization. Like, we don't have to necessarily report to ownerships and make sure that we net however much, right? Whatever money we net is going back to the students to make sure they get paid for their work, as well as go back into this community, right? And so having a belief, but not being too afraid or too proud to roll up my sleeves and help get work done, right?
Has Joe Burrow thrown out the first pitch ever, and do you think he will if he has not?
Joe has not, but his dad did.
Oh, that's cool.
So we partnered up with every year at the end, our last night, thanks to one of our partners, OUCU Financial. We have a community night where last year we took it to the next level, and we invited Jimmy and Robin Burrow on behalf of Joe's Foundation to the game. They still reside here in Athens. And they came and we presented them a check from a ticket sales perspective. And then we also had an auction on site, and we got as many people as we possibly could wearing Joe Burrow jerseys that night. And then we celebrated our oldest fan's birthday. She's 99 last year, and everybody stopped in the middle of the game, turned around and sang happy birthday to Ethel. So it was pretty cool.
Oh, that's wonderful. Do you have any players that have gone on to play Division One or, gone on to the major leagues? And not to put any pressure on the Copperheads, but, I'm sure everyone listening is wondering, hey, how have they done?
Yeah, so sometimes we have a higher winning loss percentage than others. But no, so our players come from all over the country. So the only limitation we have is that we can only have up to 4 players from any specific school. So they can come from NAIA to Division 1, Division 3. And we do get a number of Division 1 players who play on our roster. And we have had, I wouldn't say as many as the Cape Cod League, but we have had a handful of players who have gone on to play in the majors over the years. But I would embarrass myself if I tried to remember all of those people. I do remember maybe 2018, we had a gentleman who made it, Blaine Krim, who last I knew he was in AA or AAA. But yeah, so.
Okay, Annie, let's start on your day-to-day. Tell us about Ohio University, and when you walk in the building every day, tell us what you do and who you engage with, etc.
Sure. So, Ohio University, we're a proud member of the MAC. We're not Ohio State University. We're located in Athens, Ohio. And so, my job in Scripps College of Communication, I work in our dean's office. So, I work directly with and for our dean, Scott Titsworth, on strategy and marketing of the college. So, when I walk through the building, you see a lot of students, you see fellow faculty and staff, and just try to be a bright light to everybody and try to get folks to smile. Have a
That's
great day.
awesome. I love that. And I have outlined here when we first met two words that I strongly believe in that you and I have in common, which is energy and enthusiasm. So, how do you infuse that? You said you try to get people to smile and get them engaged. How do you do that specifically, Annie?
Just being a friendly face and walking up and asking people how they're doing today, how their week is going. Right now, if you ask some faculty how they're doing, we only have one more week of classes this school year. So they're at the end of the road in terms of grading and projects. And so if you can just be a friendly face and smile and give them a words of encouragement to keep going, and it's almost summer, then that's helpful. And the same goes with students, right? Students look tired and they've got a number of projects they need to finish up. So if you can just be a friendly face, why not?
Absolutely. And then so day to day, getting in the weeds with the particulars, you're there, I'm assuming, to market, right? And put out communication that is highlighting certain areas of schools and departments that are doing great work. How do you go about doing that? How do you accumulate your information and communicate with the different areas of the university?
Sure. So I work specifically in the College of Communication. So in our college, we have 5 different schools. So working with each of those school directors, faculty, and staff to how do we best position each of the schools, right? So we have the Scripps School of Journalism, for example, which is very well known and has been around forever. How do we help tell their story about and engage with their alumni that can not only help with admissions, but also celebrate our faculty and staff, current students. We've got some students doing some really great internships this summer, but then also engaging with our alumni too, right? Our School of Media Arts and Studies, they just held a big event last week on campus, the Music Industry Summit. So that was well received. And Jason Isbell was the keynote speaker, if you follow Jason at all. But just how do you work with all these different schools to position themselves, right? And then we've got working on a workforce development program with another one of our schools and working with the university's communication and marketing team in terms of what can we put out there and what can't we put out there and what's the branding and so forth. So yeah, all over the place, a lot of different exciting projects. And this is a really great group and a great culture here in Scripps College of Communication.
How would you describe it? Give us like a short description of the essence of your department.
It's very team oriented is been my experience. I've only been here for just under a year. Prior to that, I was working in a different college at the university, and it just seems a bit more team centric. Yeah, it's different, like in the sense of it starts with our dean, right, and his leadership, and he's been in the position for 13 years, and just getting to know people more as individuals, whereas sometimes it can be hard for various reasons in a university setting where you do have a lot of turnover and different things, but there doesn't seem to be a lot of turnover in this college.
Tell me about your philosophy in the classroom, because I think, it's the summertime. People are thinking about, hey, in the fall, I'm going to start school. What is your philosophy?
Yeah, so I would say I'm a teacher at heart, right? And I would say my philosophy is a teacher is like a coach, right? And so your job is to try and help coach your students, right? To manage their expectations in terms of what they can expect to learn from the class and make sure that they learn the course objectives and so forth. But challenge them to really develop as an individual and as a college student. So since I took this job over in Scripps College, I'm now a full-time administrator, but I still teach this business of baseball class. So I approach it as, let's have some fun. Let's learn about the business of baseball. Let's cover various topics while also providing students with an opportunity for hands-on learning, so experiential learning. So big proponent of whether students want to work in sports or not. We do know, or I would hope, that a lot of students want to get a job upon graduation, right? Maybe they'll go to graduate school first or take a gap year or do something. But at the end of the day, they want to be productive citizens. And so coming up with projects that allow students to have hands-on experience helps separate them from others versus reading a textbook and writing papers and so forth.
All right. So you teed it up. The business of baseball class that you teach. You have to outline that for us. That is awesome. What is that, Annie? And what are their learning objectives? What do they learn when they come out of that class?
Yeah, it's fun. Let's just start with, it's a fun class. So we put it up front. We're not going to talk about stats of the players. We're not going to talk about recruiting of players. We're going to talk about the operation of the business, right? So how are various leagues set up? What are some of the bylaws? Let's talk about money. How is money generated, right? How can we use this class to help generate revenue, perhaps? What are some of the biggest expenses? Part of the class, too, is I asked the students at the beginning of the semester to pick a team that they want to follow. So they can pick any summer collegiate baseball team or single A through triple A team. And they're going to follow them each week and write a journal entry based on whatever topic that we discover. So, for example, if we're talking about fan engagement, they're going to go on their specific team's website and they're going to talk about, okay, what does my specific team do from a fan engagement perspective? Or what have I seen them do? What are some of the best promotions? Things like that. And then they share them with the class. So it's super fun. Meanwhile, putting in integrating community outreach activities too. So this past year, we went to the local youth fields. And what's the youth sports scene look like here? And how that ties to business of baseball is we know that franchises, as well as a number of other sports organizations, are all about community outreach, right? And so how does an organization like this, why would the Copperheads, for example, spend a tremendous amount of time in the community? Yes, it's the right thing to do, but at the end of the day, it really helps from a publicity perspective for the organization. So it's a lot of fun. We just finished a ticket sales competition in class where the students sold over $5,000 on a $5 ticket of a ticket package that we sell. And so then everybody in the class can walk away saying that they helped sell a collective amount of $5,000 in tickets in 2 weeks, right? And again, that might not sound like a lot to people, but our tickets here at the Copperheads are $5 and parking is free, and that's on purpose, right? So we're in Appalachia, and so we make sure that we're the most inclusive sports team.
Okay, so Annie, let's look at this. When a student enters the class, and I'm generalizing here, they probably don't know all the business elements, even to single A or collegiate, summer league, all the way up to triple A. And then obviously I spent 8 years in Major League Baseball. So that, the average person, not just a student, person probably thinks, oh, they have baseball administration, scouts, general managers, people that pick the players, then the players. They don't realize there's a gigantic business side, which has legal, promotions, marketing, content. So once you get over that, like giving them that knowledge, do their eyes just get big and say, oh my gosh, there's so many different opportunities for me. Let's attack this, in essence.
Yeah, for sure. And part of the class too, and I failed to mention this before, is we bring in a lot of guest speakers. So very, very blessed with the network here at Ohio University and just friendships and relationships that have been developed along the way. Is as many that we can bring in from each of those topics, the better. So then they can talk about their lived experiences. And a big thing about me, when you go back to the what you're teaching philosophy, I'm big in terms of managing expectations with students, right? Because there's a lot of students, thousands of students who want to work in sport and entertainment, and that's fantastic. But we need to do a good job of managing their expectations. What are the jobs that are out there for you, or what jobs might be out there for you eventually? How much money does a person in that position get paid? What does their career progression look like, and so forth, right? And so having people who are living it helps the students better understand it as well, versus just a teacher talking to them at the front of the class.
Absolutely. And that makes total sense. And I love having guest speakers in my classes as well. So when they come in, the guest speakers, and you have a typical class, let's say, how do you structure it? Do they present, let's say somebody's studying a double A team in Arkansas, and then somebody's got a triple A team in Florida. Do they present their case studies? Like how is the information shared? I'm very curious with that.
It all depends on the person that's speaking, right? So I always start specifically with the founder of the Copperheads. So is a mentor of mine, retired faculty member, and talk to him about, hey, why did you get this team started 22 years ago? Talk to us about this. What did it mean to you? And so forth. And then in that conversation, he'll mention one of his former students that ended up being the president and CEO of minor league baseball, Pat O'Connor, who's another mentor of mine. And then the next week I bring in Pat, and Pat just has a candid coffee chat with them, in the sense of students can ask Pat anything, right? And he's now retired, and so we'll talk about Pat's experience running minor league baseball and his experience with various single A through triple A, the growth of the game, all of it. And then every week it goes based on whatever topic we've talked about. And so we had a former student who is a lead broadcaster for a single A team, who came and talked to the students, and he was very candid with them about, his experience and the competition, and let them know that he also has to sell, because getting a position like his is hard to keep full time as a single A affiliate. But it all depends. Some teams will use a case study, and show, hey, this is what worked from a fan engagement perspective, and here's why it went viral.
What an interesting topic. And was it your idea to come up with the business of baseball class? How did it create itself?
Yeah, so I can't take full credit for it. I did create the class itself, but truthfully, higher ed, they wanted to create a class that would be attractive to students, that they could offer, that students would want to take, right? That would meet graduation requirements. So it was started, I think, 3 or 4 years ago.
So you look at your background, you work for the New York City Marathon. You've had you've done some consulting work with the Super Bowl and the Olympics. Tell us about those experiences and perhaps how they've prepared you for the Copperheads and your teaching where you are now.
Yeah, I think I've always been a Rev Gen guru. I understand business. I grew up in a family business. I have a couple entrepreneurs in my family. My dad is one of them. And so always being on that side of things, but then also understanding the event planning and operations side, right? Whether it was working the Olympics, Super Bowl. But I think all of that has come to play. And then not being afraid to tap into people and ask them, hey, are we doing this right? Or what would you suggest we do? And so forth. And having those relationships with folks who do work in the industry is very helpful to bounce ideas off of.
And we talk about that a lot on this podcast, Annie, which is curiosity, right? And
Mhm.
having that as part of your DNA as a leader or a teacher or coach, right? And you just said it right there, asking questions. And sometimes in business, we don't equate that, but my goodness, it's how helpful. I'll have you answer it. How helpful has your natural curiosity and willing to learn and open yourself up to new ways of doing things? How much has that helped you?
Hands down, it's been the key, I think, right? So I didn't tell you this, I don't think, but I have 4 rules for the students when it comes to the organization. First and foremost, it's got to be safe. I learned that at the Roadrunners. First and foremost, like we can't have a race if it's thundering and lightning, right? People are going to have to exit the park if that's the case, right? So, which really did happen one summer. And so it's got to be safe. It's got to be legal. We don't need to get into any legal trouble or bad PR for the organization. We're not going to, it's got to be fiscally responsible. We're not going to have an idea or run something that's going to jeopardize potentially the financials of the organization. And last but not least, it's got to be fun or purposeful and adding positivity to the community. So when challenging students to come up with those ideas, right, those are the four concepts that they have to keep in mind. And honestly, it's just encouraging them to continue to come up with other ideas, or pushing the buck about like the beer. Like, our goal is to get into the grocery store, and like, how cool would it be to be at Progressive Field or Great American Ballpark or whatever the case may be, and students who are working there saying, hey, that's the beer that we created in my class, and that could truly happen, right? Like, it truly could happen.
So are the principles that you have for the Copperheads, do you bring those in discussion in the class, the business of baseball? Like I would assume that they're very, very, that would probably be a full lesson, I would assume.
Yeah, so the students, their final project in the class, and we've started to listen to the presentation, it says, have fun, come up with the most fun promotional event that you can come up with for the Copperheads. And you've got to generate awareness, you've got to get people to buy tickets. If you can incorporate a sponsor in a community outreach activity, awesome, right? That's the grand slam. And so come up with a really, really fun idea, all the while making sure that you keep the principles of the Copperheads at the center, right? And so there's one student in class who's been following this minor league baseball team that is on the edge whenever it comes to PC or not, right? And what they're putting out in the media and different things. And I laughed at that student and I said, hey, like, you know a lot about your organization, but just keep in mind the Copperheads are not your organization, right? And so have fun with it, but come up with something that aligns with the principles. And so it's been really fun to hear some of the ideas that the students have come up with, right? Some of them have come up with like fundraisers for other nonprofits, or others have come up with like, hey, there's this movie coming out this summer. We think that we should do this and have a premiere, and we can partner up with the local movie theater. And this is how we drive traffic to them while also building excitement and adding value to our game. So it's all over the place.
That's awesome. I love it. All right. Are you ready for all-star moments? I think they're very applicable today.
Sure.
Are you ready? Okay. These are rapid fire questions. Here we go. How do you deal with adversity?
Take it head on.
How do you give yourself fuel?
Run.
What does never give up mean to you?
Never give up. Just keep going.
The value of collaboration, describe.
Invaluable. I love working with people. We're better together.
So you've hired people over the years. What do you look for in a person, an ideal candidate?
Someone who's coachable, someone who's humble, someone who's team-oriented, and someone who has a drive.
Awesome. Describe yourself as a leader in one sentence.
Purpose-led, authentic, still learning, team-oriented.
Love it. And lastly, what's the difference between a manager and a leader?
A manager is a title. A leader is somebody, whether or not they have the title, who can inspire people to get the job done.
Awesome. Awesome.
But
this was wonderful.
Come to Athens, Ohio. Come to a game. It's really fun. Let's get you to throw out the first pitch. That would be fun.
That would be really fun. I should start warming the arm up now.
Doesn't matter. You can keep moving closer to the plate. No one's going to judge you.
Annie, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we thank Annie very much for being on the show. I have a footnote and a takeaway from the conversation. First, for the footnote, Annie is writing her PhD dissertation on the league that the Copperheads play in every summer. As for the takeaway, how about those 4 rules for the students when they run the concessions and the business operations for the Copperheads? Number 1, be safe. Number 2, don't do anything illegal. No bad PR. Number 3, be fiscally responsible. And number 4, have fun and positively influence the community. What a conversation and what a way to launch into summer for all of us, right? Summer baseball. Thank you, everybody, for being part of Keep the Line Moving each and every week. We'll see you next time. Take care. Every week, you hear guests on this podcast talk about some of their biggest leadership challenges. As a leader, you want to make an impact on those you lead and reach your organization's goals, while also optimizing your time management. Wherever you are in your leadership journey, we could all use some help. This is what we focus on with our group and individual coaching services. To book a call or get more information, email me directly at chrisg@garganoleadership.com or visit our website at garganoleadership.com. For our podcast and video producer, Jack Radutsky, and our marketing coordinator, Savin Narwal, have a great week, everybody.